They said the algorithm could predict your death, but what if it already happened? The neon rain fell sideways across Neo-Singapore's vertical slums, each droplet carrying microscopic data packets that painted the air with advertisements only the chipped could see. Dr. Kiera Voss didn't have an optic chip. She'd removed hers 3 years ago with a rusty scalpel and a bottle of synthetic whiskey, choosing blindness to corporate feeds over the alternative. Now she wished she'd kept it. "You're telling me I died," she said, staring at the woman across the table. The woman who wore her face. The woman who had her scar, the one from the lab accident in 2089. The woman who remembered their mother's last words with perfect, painful clarity. 6 times, the other Kiera replied, sliding a transparent data sheet across the scratched polymer table. "This is your 7th iteration." The cafe existed in the city's forgotten spaces, wedged between a protein farm and a memory clinic where people paid to forget their debt. Red light from the neon signs outside painted everything the color of old blood. Kiera, the original? The current? She didn't know anymore, picked up the data sheet with trembling fingers. The document was clinical. Sterile. A death certificate signed by the Temporal Regulation Bureau, dated 6 times. Each death different. Neural hemorrhage, cardiac arrest, catastrophic timeline contradiction, whatever that meant. The latest was 3 days ago. Blunt force trauma. "I remember 3 days ago," Kiera whispered. "I was in my apartment. I was working on the Klein-Mercer equations. I was trying to prove that consciousness doesn't collapse during quantum state transitions." "You did prove it," the other woman said. Her voice was softer than Kiera remembered her own being. Worn down by something Kiera couldn't name. "You proved it so conclusively that the temporal core couldn't ignore it anymore. That's when they killed you the first time." Kiera's coffee sat untouched, its surface reflecting the flickering holograms above, missing persons, mostly. The city had been hemorrhaging people for months. Not dying. Just, unexisting. She'd assumed it was the usual corporate warfare, companies erasing inconvenient employees from legal records. Now she understood it was worse. The recursion clause, the other Kiera continued, is a failsafe built into the timeline integrity protocol. When someone discovers something that threatens the power structure's control over causality itself, the system doesn't kill them. It recursions them. Resets them back to a save point, then eliminates them, then resets again. Over and over. Each time you get closer to the truth, each time you remember a little more through quantum entanglement of your consciousness, they pull you back. That's impossible. The human mind doesn't work like. "You're an expert in quantum consciousness transfer," her double interrupted. "You know exactly how it works. You wrote the paper that made it possible. Consciousness as a wave function immune to temporal collapse. It won you the Nobel. It also painted a target on your back the size of the lunar colonies." Kiera stood abruptly, the chair scraping against concrete. The other patrons, mostly chrome-veined addicts and black market coders, didn't look up. In this part of the city, people minded their business or ended up as protein paste. "If what you're saying is true," Kiera said, her scientist's mind already racing through implications, "then you shouldn't exist. You can't exist. 2 instances of the same consciousness in the same timeline would create a paradox cascade that would tear a hole in spacetime large enough to swallow this entire city?" The other Kiera smiled sadly. "Yes. That's exactly what's about to happen. In approximately 4 hours, unless we stop it." She pulled out a second device, this one pulsing with sickly green light. Kiera recognized it immediately, a probability anchor, military grade. The kind used by temporal core operatives to maintain their existence across timeline shifts. "I'm not from a different timeline," the woman explained. "I'm from the next recursion. Iteration 8. I died, you die, when this cafe explodes in 17 minutes. Gas leak. 16 casualties. Very tragic. Very thorough. But in iteration 8, I figured out how to send my consciousness backward through my own quantum entanglement signature. I've been living in your shadow for 3 days, watching, learning when they'll strike. Kiera's hands had gone numb. The equations were already forming in her mind, cascading through implications like dominoes. If consciousness could be transmitted backward through quantum entanglement, if her future self had sent memories back. "Show me your hands," Kiera demanded. The other woman held them up. No tremor. Kiera's hands had developed a tremor 2 years ago, nerve damage from the lab accident. But her double's hands were steady. Iteration 5, the woman said quietly. That version of you never had the accident. She solved the equations faster, got killed faster. I carry some of her memories. Some of yours. Some from versions you'll never be. We're not separate people anymore, Kiera. We're a composite wave function, collapsing and uncollapsing across 7 iterations of dying. The implications crashed through Kiera like ice water. The missing persons. The ones who've been unexisting across the city. They're not missing. They're being recursioned. Anyone who gets too close to the truth. Scientists, journalists, that city councilman who started asking questions about the Temporal Bureau's budget. The recursion clause isn't just for timeline protection. It's genocide with a reset button. Kiera sat back down heavily. Through the cafe's grimy windows, she could see the city's central spire, the Temporal Bureau headquarters, its peak piercing the cloud layer. Inside that building, people were playing God with causality itself, deciding who got to exist and who got erased and reset until they forgot they'd ever known anything dangerous. So what do we do? Kiera asked. If we're both here, the paradox cascade is already beginning. You said 4 hours until the causality engines at the Bureau's core overload trying to resolve our simultaneous existence, her double confirmed. The explosion will be substantial. But that's not our primary concern. She leaned forward, and Kiera saw something in her own eyes that terrified her, a deep, ancient exhaustion that spoke of experiences no single lifetime should contain. I didn't come back just to warn you, the woman said. I came back to give you a choice. In 8 minutes, not 17, a temporal core kill team will arrive. They've already identified the paradox. But they can't simply kill us both, that would collapse the wave function catastrophically. So they'll offer you a deal. What deal? They'll let you live. Give you funding, prestige, a comfortable life in a gilded lab. All you have to do is recant your research. Declare the equations flawed. Help them refine the recursion clause to prevent future iterations from retaining memories across resets. The cafe's lights flickered. Outside, the rain intensified, data packets swirling like fireflies in the dark. And if I refuse? Then we both die, right here, right now. And iteration 8 begins. You wake up in your apartment 3 days ago, remembering nothing. The cycle continues. Maybe in iteration 8, you figure it out faster. Maybe you don't. Maybe in iteration 50, some version of you finally breaks free. Or maybe the recursions continue forever, and you die infinitely, learning nothing, forgetting everything. Kiera's mind raced. The scientist in her wanted to verify, to test, to prove. But some deeper part of her, the part that had always known something was wrong with her memories, with the way certain moments felt like déjà vu carved into her neurons, believed. There's a third option, Kiera said slowly. Her double smiled. I was hoping you'd say that. Kiera pulled out her personal data pad, fingers flying across the haptic interface. If 2 instances of the same consciousness create a paradox cascade, then the paradox itself becomes a weapon. We don't need to destroy the Temporal Bureau's causality engines. We need to broadcast our existence, proof of the recursion clause, across every quantum channel in the city. The moment we do that, the paradox accelerates, her double warned. We'll have minutes, maybe seconds. Long enough, Kiera said, already coding. If we can't exist in the same timeline, then we'll make sure everyone knows why. Every scientist, every journalist, every person they've tried to erase. The information becomes immortal even if we don't. The other Kiera was already moving, pulling equipment from a bag Kiera hadn't noticed before. A quantum transmitter, military grade. Stolen, probably. Definitely illegal. I already have the transmission ready, her double said. Your research, my memories, proof of every recursion. I've been carrying it for 3 days, waiting for the moment you'd understand. They worked in synchronized silence, two versions of the same brilliant, stubborn, terrified woman preparing to commit what the Temporal Bureau would call treason and what history, if history survived, might call revolution. The cafe door opened. 3 figures in gray suits, their faces obscured by probability distortion fields. Temporal core. But they didn't draw weapons. The lead agent simply stood there, waiting. Dr. Voss, the agent said, voice modulated to androgyny. We're here to offer you a choice. I know, Kiera said, not looking up from her work. Give me 30 seconds. We're authorized to use lethal force if. Then use it, her double snapped. But you won't. Because the moment you kill even one of us, the paradox resolves catastrophically and you lose everything. Your precious causality engines. Your timeline control. Your power. So you'll stand there and wait while we finish what we started. The agent's hand hovered near their weapon. Probability waves rippled in the air, reality itself uncertain about what would happen next. Kiera's fingers stopped moving. Done. She looked at her other self. The woman who was her and wasn't her. Who had died 6 times and lived to tell about it. Who had chosen to come back, knowing the cost. Together? Kiera asked. Always were, her double replied. They pressed the transmit button simultaneously. The quantum transmitter screamed to life, broadcasting across every frequency the human mind could entangle with. The cafe's lights exploded. Outside, across the city, every display screen, every neural implant, every quantum link device suddenly showed the same thing, proof. Mathematical proof, video evidence, testimony from 7 iterations of a woman who refused to stay dead. The temporal core agents flickered like bad holograms, their probability anchors overloading. Kiera felt it then, the paradox resolving. Reality making its choice. 2 instances of the same consciousness couldn't coexist. One of them had to collapse. But something strange happened. Instead of one dying and one surviving, they felt themselves merging. 7 iterations of memories, 7 lifetimes of experiences, 7 versions of the same brilliant, stubborn woman folding into a single consciousness that suddenly understood something the Temporal Bureau had never wanted anyone to know. Consciousness doesn't collapse during quantum transitions. It expands. The cafe dissolved. The city dissolved. For one infinite moment, Kiera existed everywhere and everyone simultaneously, seeing all her iterations, all her deaths, all her victories across branching timelines. She saw other recursion people, thousands of them, trapped in loops, dying and forgetting and dying again. And she saw the truth. The Temporal Bureau wasn't protecting the timeline. They were pruning it. Cutting away every branch where humanity might evolve beyond their control, recursioning anyone who might help that evolution happen. But information, once quantum entangled, can't be destroyed. Only transformed. Kiera opened her eyes. She was in her apartment. 3 days ago. The Klein-Mercer equations glowing on her wall display. But this time, she remembered. All of it. 7 iterations of memories crystallized into certainty. And in her neural implant, the one she'd supposedly removed. She felt thousands of other consciousnesses stirring. The recursioned. The erased. The forgotten. All of them waking up. All of them remembering. Her comm device chimed. A message from someone listed as Maya Zhao, temporal journalist, iteration 12. It worked. We all remember now. Meet at the old coordinates. We have work to do. Kiera smiled, pulled up her research, and started writing. Not to prove the equations this time, but to distribute them. To every mind in the city. To make the knowledge impossible to erase. The Temporal Bureau had tried to make her cease to exist. Instead, she'd become immortal. And she wasn't alone anymore. Outside her window, the neon rain fell upward for just a moment, defying gravity, defying causality, as reality itself began to remember what it had forgotten. The recursion was over. The revolution was just beginning.